Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Dimitris for his support. Before we start, a quick note on my approach. My goal is simple: to give you a clear overall view of the topic we are about to explore. I want to make sure that whether you are an engineer or a doctor, you will leave today with a practical understanding of the microbial life sharing our buildings. I have chosen the title of today's presentation to align with the representation of the Asclepion of course. This is not coincidence. Just as our ancient colleagues perceived the building and the environment as an integral part of the healing process, today, medical biopathology highlights our invincible yet decisive cohabitation with microorganisms within the modern built environment. As we begin, we must realize that a building is not merely an inert shell. It is a dynamic ecosystem. Given that we spend 90% of our time inside it, the building's microbe, what we define as the microbiology of the built environment, essentially becomes our own environment, thus directly impacting our health. A building is not a static entity. Microbes are in constant motion. The most common route is through direct contact with surfaces we touch every day, the microbial reservoirs known as fomites. At the same time, we have aerosols from air conditioning systems as well as water distribution networks. Every movement we make within a space steers up dust and microbes back into the air we breathe. The surface is not merely a substrate. Non-porous surfaces such as metallic, plastic, and glass are the primary footprints for pathogen transfer. Conversely, porous materials like wood and carpets trap moisture and favor fungal growth. The ability of microbes to survive for extended periods, up to several months on these surfaces, represents a major challenge for public health. Furthermore, microbes on these surfaces do not remain isolated. They don't just survive, they organize themselves. Think of the surfaces we just saw as the foundation, the ground upon which they build a much more dangerous structure. This leads us to the most successful survival strategy in the microbial world, the biofilm. To understand why biofilms are the Achilles heel of building maintenance, we must look at their life cycle. A biofilm is not just a collection of bacteria. It is a sophisticated functional community. It begins with initial attachment, where pioneer bacteria adhere to a surface. Within hours, they start secreting extracellular polymeric substances known as EPS, a slimy matrix that acts like biological concrete. This matrix provides two critical advantages for microbes. First, it acts as a physical barrier that prevents disinfectants and antibiotics from reaching the cells. Second, it facilitates quorum sensing, a form of microbial communication where bacteria coordinate their activity based on their population density. In essence, the biofilm allows pathogen to hide in plain sight within the building's water or cooling systems, waiting for the right conditions to disperse and cause infection. This is why a simple chemical flush often fails. We are not just fighting germs, we are fighting an organized biological fortress. Biofilms are not unique to buildings. In the human body, we encounter them in chronic situations that are notoriously difficult to treat, such as dental plaque, infections on prosthetic heart valves, or catheter-associated urinary tract infections. Just as a biofilm protects bacteria from antibiotics in a patient, it also protects them from chemical disinfectants within a building's piping or cooling tower. It is essential to recognize that biofilms are not merely simply colonies, but highly sophisticated biological structures. As clinicians, we are all too familiar with their resilience in nosocomial infections. Within the building environment, the extracellular polymeric substance matrix serves as a formidable shield, rendering microorganisms to up to 1,000 times more resistant to conventional disinfectants and antimicrobial agents compared to their free living state. This explains why standard cleaning protocols often fail, leading to what we might call a clinical relapse of the building itself. In this slide, we examine the impact of human health and the diseases associated with the built environment. To understand the etiopathogenesis of these conditions, we must distinguish between two primary clinical entities. On one hand, we have sick building syndrome, SBS. This is characterized by vague, non-specific symptoms, such as headaches or mucosal irritation, that are temporarily linked to the building. The diagnostic clue here is that symptoms typically resolve once the individual leaves the premises. On the other hand, we have building-related illness, BRI. This is a crucial distinction, as BRI refers to clinically diagnosable diseases with a proven environmental trigger. It acts as an umbrella term for various manifestations, from allergic conditions like asthma and rhinitis, often triggered by dust mites, to inflammatory responses like hypersensitivity pneumonitis and even direct infectious diseases such as legionellosis. We must be especially vigilant regarding opportunistic infections, which pose a critical risk to immunocompromised populations within the built environment. This transition from vague symptoms to specific disease is precisely why the laboratory's role is critical for public health. In the next two slides, we will examine the most characteristic pathogens associated with both entities and explore how they differ from one another. In the table currently displayed, you can see the most characteristic etiological agents associated with these syndromes. We have bacteria, fungi and molds, viruses, and non-biological triggers. Gram-negative bacteria such as Legionella, Pseudomonada, Acinetobacter, and Escherichia coli species. The gram-negative bacteria produce endotoxins that are heat stable and can withstand high temperatures, which makes them very difficult to eliminate from the heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems. Fungi and molds such as Spendulus and Penicillium, Stachybotrys chartarum, which cause the black mold, Cladosporium, Alternaria fusarium, and Mucor. These are the opportunistic fungi infections. The viruses such as SARS-CoV and other viruses such as influenza and norovirus. About the non-biological triggers, we have the allergenic arthropods, Dermatophagoides pteronicium, and Farinea. And chemical irritants and aptens, the volatile organic compounds, formaldehyde, isocyanides, etc. This slide illustrates the core of our differential diagnostic approach. While in SPS the etiology is often multifactorial and symptoms subside as soon as the patient is removed from the environment, in PRI we are dealing with an established disease. In other words, in PRI we actively search for a specific pathogen in the laboratory, whether that is Legionella in a culture or specific antibodies against fungi. This distinction is of paramount importance, as it determines not only the patient's treatment, but also the necessary actions to be taken regarding the building's infrastructure. How then can we intervene? Our approach to indoor health is undergoing a paradigm shift. We are moving away from the unattainable and often counterproductive goal of total sterilization towards the promotion of microbial diversity. Prevention begins with the control of environmental conditions. Adequate ventilation and maintaining relatively humidity below 50% are our medicines against mold. Today, these strategies also include high-efficiency filtration and continuous indoor air quality monitoring. Furthermore, we recommend targeted disinfection of high-touch surfaces, the microbial reservoirs or fomites we discussed earlier, and the use of materials that do not favor biofilm formation. Beyond standard cleaning, technology now allows us to utilize active materials. The integration of photocatalytic surfaces and antimicrobial coatings can drastically reduce the microbial load at high touch points, providing an additional layer of protection where conventional cleanings fall short. Therefore, your role as an engineer is not just to design and build a sterile box, but to create a living, breathing system that sustains a healthy microbial balance. Hippocrates' hearing course taught us that to understand health, we must first study the air, the water, and the place in which we live. Today, 2,500 years later, we are called to apply this wisdom to the modern ecosystems we call buildings. Our health is not something isolated, but rather a mirror of the built environment we create. Regarding the bibliographic aspect, we do not omit our domestic sources. In Greece, the framework is defined both by academic textbooks on environmental health and by the strict guidelines of the National Organization for Public Health, EOD. Specifically, the circular regarding Legionella is not merely a recommendation. It is a working protocol that links clinical diagnosis with the technical compliance of building infrastructures. In closing, I present the primary bibliographic sources upon which today's presentation was based. These represent a combination of World Health Organization guidelines and contemporary studies on the microbiology of the built environment. In particular, the study by the National Academies stands as the gold standard for anyone who is to delve deeper into the dynamic coexistence of humans and microbes within modern buildings. Thank you very much for your time and your kindness.
Thank you, Doctor, for your presentation. And now, if there are any questions for Nikolaos, if there are, we shall proceed with Slido, which is open right now. Thank you,
Doctor, for your fascinating talk. I know there's an American doctor, she's also an architect, called Stephanie Taylor, who's very interesting.
Yes, I'm waiting for her to meet her.
Yes, she's a very interesting individual. She's an architect and a doctor.
I was talking just for her today.
Okay. Well, she would have loved your presentation. But Stephanie talks about the more we're manipulating the HVAC systems and indoor air quality, we're decreasing the biodiversity of the microbiome.
Yes.
And there's some evidence that not having diversity in your microbiome it impacts on your immune system. Would you agree with that? That it's better to have a much, you did say it in your presentation, but do you think microbial diversity is important? And if so, what does that mean the HVAC industry should be doing to increase biodiversity of the indoor microbial biome?
Well, I present this from the point of view of a laboratory worker. At the round table at the Wednesday, you said that there must be more cooperation between engineers and doctors.
Yeah.
I'm ready to sit in a table, but I don't know the specifications. I know what I want, but I don't know what technical guidelines you must provide.
Neither do I.
But the idea is exactly this. We must have an enhanced microbial diversity.
Yeah. Well, just by being here, you're giving an opportunity for that conversation to begin. So thank you for being here. Thank you.